It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Hi, it's Feedback Friday. And as you notice, Cthulhu's taking notes. He's helping me with Feedback Friday this week. And interesting comments week. Was tough to sort of decide how to approach the feedback to the feedback. Feedback to feedback is always a difficult thing. I do Feedback Fridays to keep an incentive for interesting comments, productive comments, high quality criticism. Generally people, even when they disagree, it comes from a positive place, and that mostly seems to work. But on some topics it just all goes to shit, and I was prepared for that. So I'm gonna take a particular approach today, and we'll see how it works. I did get demonetized on Monday's video. YouTube doesn't think advertisers want us discussing the most pressing issues of our day. So if you like this sort of content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. All right, so I read a comment and I cracked up on the video about are men allowed to have opinions on abortion. A lot of people totally missed the rhetorical question. Like so many people clearly did not watch the video before commenting. And this is something I admit I have a real hard time understanding. And this is a me thing. This is something normal people completely understand. I don't get. I don't understand why someone would comment simply to make noise into the ether of the internet before you've even watched someone's content. I don't understand it. I know that there are reasons people do it. I don't think I'll ever understand it. I'm just leaving it like that. That's my point of reference for this. I'm sort of baffled about the whole thing. But one person said, I'm here for the comments, LOL, and some of the comments did not disappoint. I'm not going to read those comments because it's not worth it. I think a bunch of people found the video based on the YouTube algorithm and will never watch another one of my videos. So, if they stick around and continue to comment, I'll respond to one of their comments then. But it's just sort of like, I don't know what to do with a comment that clearly didn't watch the video. So I want to start on the video about respect because it's a good place to start with this comment. And I thought this was a great, let's set the deck. Like, let's set the table here. So in order to respect someone else, you must respect yourself. You have to know what your own boundaries are, at least be on the lookout for them, depending on where you are in your arc of life. To understand that you are worthy of respect and commanding, rather than demanding respect, attracts you. It becomes the currency of investing in relationships. Commanding respect also requires a person to respect themselves enough to accept criticism when they don't live up to their espoused values and work better to conform or discuss why a boundary failed. I can respect an action even if they themselves are not worthy of respect. Respecting the action then becomes the impetus for them to build better habits. It's been my experience with people who demand respect that they're not worthy of it. Respect in a relationship is bidirectional. It must be exchanged in order to be sustained. It's one of the reasons why we feel so betrayed when someone violates our respect. In my time in the Army, I've had the opportunity to observe countless interactions in a culture where respect is an allegedly central commodity. I've seen enough unworthy people with rank demand respect only for their subordinates to respect their rank or position, but still hold the person in contempt. You can no more demand respect than demand the sun rise or set on a whim. And I thought that was just beautiful. I mean, it definitely built on the idea of respect is something you do, not just something you claim to think. and that idea that you can respect a particular action, you know, without respecting the person. It's a nuanced thing, and I do agree that it comes with your own with respect for yourself. If you don't respect yourself, you can't respect anybody else, right, Cthulhu? Um and I saw a lot of that in some of the knee jerking in the comments. A lot of people had some issues with that basic concept. And I admit I don't know what to do. And there's another comment I pulled that sort of speaks to this, but I never know what to do because I don't just want to dismiss a person out of hand. But sometimes when someone's fundamental starting assumption is so flawed, it seems like there's absolutely no hope of trying to explain to someone why their reasoning is flawed, because they just don't have the basic frameworks to understand this stuff. And that always makes me really sad because I never want to discount a person who seems to mean well. But people got to be willing to do the work, and that, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's enough to accept criticism. Even accepting that you're wrong. Somebody can make you realize you were wrong about something without criticizing you, but some people are so terrified of being wrong. That's going to be the subject of Monday's video in part. So thank you for your comment, commenter. That was very wise. Now we move on to other stuff. I'm going to do some of the stuff on the opinion as an abortion, and then I'm going to move on to choice. Do you see what I did there? Like choice and choice? Like, I thought it was clever. Some people said they really, really like the deep dive video game stuff, even though it doesn't get the traffic other stuff does. So I'm going to keep doing it, even though, yeah, the traffic is just not there. I'm at the point, I don't care. I would rather have good conversations than a ton of traffic. It's my choice. But this one comment, the problem with just letting them talk is that people who don't accept that there is a huge difference in velocity between thoughts and feelings never have to deal with the similarities and differences. They get caught up in bubbles as a matter of foundation. It can be as simple as asking, how do you feel when you are frightened? Frightened is not actually the feeling. It's a convenient label for a complex of sensations that have long resolved themselves before awareness has even taken hold. A few of us are acutely aware of this process while it is taking place, and find precious few others with whom to share it, even among those in the therapeutic and scientific communities. And yeah, I say a lot. This is a fairly new commenter. I haven't recognized the screen name. I don't know if it's a new person, if it's a person with just a different count. I apologize if it is. I didn't recognize them. But I say a lot. Thoughts happen, feelings happen faster than thoughts. And people treat me like I am crazy. We have been, and this person's clearly schooled in philosophy based on some other words they used. I'm like, yeah. But yeah, it's a basic understanding that those feelings, those sensations that we kind of find words to describe as feelings, they happen much faster than cognitive thoughts. And that's why the idea that we can stop a feeling dead with cognition is flawed. You can prevent certain emotional responses based on the stories you tell yourself about the meaning of a situation. But there are some situations that are just, legitimately angering, legitimately frightening. Those feelings happen, those sensations, the breathing faster, the heart pounding, I was so pissed off the other week at someone, my face actually went red. Like I was flushed from the exertion of not taking the bait, of not giving the person the confrontation that it seemed like they wanted. And I was just getting so frustrated about getting interrupted and strawmanned. And like my face was red. I was so fucking angry. Did I think my face red? No, I didn't. It was a rush of blood to the head. We have these things as humans. And a rational person recognizes this. I talked about this on It's Not Therapy this week, that the rational position factors in emotions, factors in feelings, because we can't stop them. And I agree with these uh commenters that I agree with this commenter that yes, there's far too people that understand it. I have a couple of really great one-on-one clients. If you want to be a one-on client, link in the description box below to the intake form, which will be changing fairly soon as we bundle it into something else. But if you want to get in on beta pricing, get in soon. Yes, incentive. But there's a few clients that are so good that when I say, how did you feel in that moment? They actually say, like, I felt like a wall in my head, or my stomach hurt, or, you know, I my chest felt tight. And that's like, all right, we can start to figure out exactly what's going on there and exactly how to have mediation strategies for that. Because you can't just not feel. It's amazing how many people out there think you can't feel. You can stop yourself from feeling. That's not even what the Stoics said. I don't know. This is a post-war keep calm and carry on horseshit propaganda thing going on. We have feelings for a reason. They might not always be good reasons, but they're there for a reason. And a true intellectual, a true thinking person recognizes that fact, because if you can't recognize that fact, can you really consider yourselves a logical being? Because it is just scientific fact that those feelings, those sensations, the perfect word the commenter used is velocity. The huge difference in velocity, how quickly they accelerate, how quickly they happen between feelings and thoughts. That is just fact. And if you're denying that fact of your existence, and as the commenter said, a lot of people do, you're not going to get the right answer in a lot of other things, because you're just operating from a fundamentally counterfactual place. And this leads me to the next comment that I thought this was on the abortion video, but I thought it was an interesting pivot to something else, that because of the demographics involved, if it's like, okay, let's do this, the people who were yelling at me and the people who were agreeing with me before they even watched the video would probably just shift. Probably, I said. I said I was sure. It's very important to distinguish opinions from facts, or speculation from facts. Comment. I think a mild amount of empathy, and by extension compassion, for people with even extremely bigoted points of view can go a long way. Like for incels, for example. Many of them are men who feel attacked and demonized as usually white, cis, straight, and young men. Are they actually being attacked and demonized? No, but they feel that way. The next step is to empathize with that feeling, because we've all felt that way in one way or another. Then the next step is to educate them on the reality of the situation. Something is happening in our culture that makes them feel that way. Understanding what it is and understanding that it's making them feel a certain way is a powerful step in de-radicalizing them. Same goes for many extremely divisive topics. And I'm referencing this because I know that sympathy for incels is something that people go, nope. I happen to agree with the commenter that empathy, it's important. The particular challenge with kind of manosphere types is that their feelings are real. They have felt rejected by the world based on their feelings. And so they found these communities that gave them temporary soothing, but then filled their heads with a ton of shit that actually makes them feel worse in the wrong run. And that's the thing I am so concerned about. That if this was stuff that actually made these mostly guys feel better, and they went on and lived productive lives, even though they were involuntarily celibate, great. You don't see that. They're trapped in these boxes of misery. And as anybody who's come back from their own box of misery, who's escaped their own box of misery, there is an urge to anybody that wants a hand up out of that box of misery should be able to get it. Now, the problem is that, especially for men, and this makes it uniquely difficult, and we don't talk about it nearly enough. I'm going to tackle this on It's Not Therapy next week. There is a like wounded animal anger that makes typical men and typical women kind of stupid in somewhat predictable ways. There's a lashing out. And it's not helpful. And a person can only be... It's very difficult to give people that space because it's part of the process, but also at the same time, not validate that it is just fine to lash out at somebody, because too many people get stuck in the lashing out cycle. You know, one comment actually said that women demand respect and never intend to give it out. They may or may not ever intend to give it out. It's like, how do you know what any individual person intends? Never mind the entire 48% of the population, because now we have to factor in non-binary people. But how do you know women just demand respect even though they never, intend to give it back? The typical woman, the way a typical woman is socialized, the problem is actually women are never taught that command respect principles. Some through like sort of older ways of sort of family matriarchs and things like that. My maternal grandmother was someone who commanded respect. She didn't have to demand it. She was 4'10" and terrifying. Okay, you did not mouth back to that woman. But that's in certain traditions, it is more common than in others. I mean, sort of Sophia from the Golden Girls was sort of a comic representation of that. There's an elder, a female elder, who commands respect, even though, she's a goof and tells tall tales, and most of the stuff that comes out of her mouth isn't factually accurate, but there's like a wisdom, a truth to it. We are really losing touch with the good parts of that sort of traditionalism. And that really concerns me because, I mean, I've studied the way female adolescence just destroys a young woman's understanding that respect is something that they can ever have, just because of the really horrendous social bullying, the secret keeping, the alliance building, the backstabbing, the making the victim seem like the perpetrator. And then we're supposed to believe women when any woman who's survived that kind of 8th grade goes, the fuck we are, because they watched another girl or a group of girls just lie about them and were believed, and that's how it works. Now, I suspect that more and more and more boys are being subjected to the exact same kind of bullying. And what that kind of bullying, I don't even think you should call it bullying anymore. That is group psychological torture. That is ostracism. Bullying is not, it's not the right word for it anymore. But we are living in a culture with a respect deficit, and therefore a not understanding our feelings deficit. And so we have an empathy deficit, because you sort of need an element of you do need an element of self-respect. That was too wishy-washy. See, that's a feminine method of speaking that I refuse to use. No, this is something I emphatically believe. Fuck you if you don't like it. These are my views. Respect the fact that you may not agree with me, but do not fucking question that I am coming at you straight. Drives me fucking bonkers. And I wish we could have another thing, coming at you straight, because now straight means multiple things and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, babbling. It is very difficult to feel empathy for incels because they are so miserable and because they are so angry. That's why it's important to do it. You know, you can find the behavior totally unacceptable. You can find the things they say disgusting or even comically pathetic. But that is a human being. You know, that isn't a toy. That isn't a machine. That isn't just words on a screen. A human being wrote those words. A human being is in that pain. A human being has been pushed down that far. And I actually saw people on Twitter this week say, I don't think empathy, a basic level of respect, a basic level of empathy are possible. And I'm like, fuck me. Like, where I came from, these were basics. You didn't have to like someone. You did have to respect what they did well. That's gone now. If you don't like what someone says, they're just evil. And that's conditioning. That's socialization. And that's why you do have to fight, at least, like, you don't have to agree with somebody. You don't have to think they're a good person. You do have to recognize that they're a person. And that matters. Because, you know, this is a topic for another day, but the people who walk around worried people hate them. I know people hate me. They hate the idea of me. They hate that I won't shut up. They hate that, you know, I make sense. And that's, both political streams hate me because I make sense. I can't do anything about that. And I know part of it is forced. Part of them force themselves to hate me so that they can do dehumanizing things to me. And I respect myself enough to not respond in kind. I attack ideas. I don't attack people. I attack behaviors. I don't attack people. And a lot of people really don't know the difference. So in the spirit of that, here's a question from somebody who refers to me as pro-abortion, which means they're pro-life, right? We can assume certain things. This is a question for you, Leanna, as a person who is pro-abortion. Let's carve out health, religious, rape, and incest exceptions for abortion. Well, that's a pro-choice position. Okay, so health, religious, rape, and incest exceptions. Okay, so any person who believes life does not begin at conception can get an abortion. Okay, we're done. There's more of the question. Okay. With all the forms of birth control available and knowing 2 or 3 condom, spermicide, X means if you get pregnant, it's probably the second coming. Just a little joke. with all of that, why does abortion still have to be available as birth control? Um, this is one of these things where I don't know of anybody who uses abortion as birth control consciously. Um, there are, unfortunately, I when I first did peer counseling back in high school, there were a lot of girls who were coerced into sex by older men. I shouldn't even say men. These were 14-year-olds who had sex partners who were like 18 years old, in some cases 21 years old. In some cases, they didn't have the education and they didn't have the agency to take birth control. They, in some places, they were in foster or group homes that were run by religious people who would not allow people to stay in under their roof if they didn't conform to that sort of stuff. And so birth control was a no-no. Condoms do fail. Condoms are more of a disease prevention thing than a primary birth control method thing. Condoms break, right? Some people are allergic to the spermicidal foams, and there's no foolproof method. Hopefully that answers your question, because I don't know of anybody who uses abortion as a form of birth control. This video is going to get demonetized for talking about this. But this is one of those things of, what does it matter? Why are we so obsessed with these hypotheticals? We don't know another person's story. And that's why the decision should be between a person and their doctor. Any decision. This is not just about abortion. This is about, trans medicine as well. This is about, men's right to, I don't know, like, could you imagine if if a board of doctors had to approve a vasectomy because you never want kids ever? If a state board had to approve testosterone treatments for men as they get older, their testosterone drops and they can have a whole bunch of like energy issues. Can you imagine if the state got involved with that? That's bullshit. That's just bullshit. The person who's the best expert on whether to prescribe that stuff for men is a doctor. So let's stay out of everybody else's business, right? That to me it's just it's this is where I get pissed off, because I believe that people should stay in their lanes and speak about things they are qualified to speak about, or recognize that their opinion is worth nothing more than a layman's. And that's why I'll say, this is just my opinion on things. The person who determines what is the right medical decision for somebody is not a congressman or a senator or a president or a judge. Judges have to do it sometimes. That's why they're judges. But the correct person to decide the correct medical procedure for someone is the person, their family, and their healthcare team. Period. That's the expert. They know what's best for them, or they think what's best for them. They have to make the choice, informed by doctors. Let's just make that across the board. Now I want to get into the choice things, because somebody mentioned the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I want to play that game so badly. Maybe I'll have to fit that into Twitch. I've heard great things about it. Somebody mentioned, why didn't I bring up the Telltale games? I really felt the Telltale games were too subjective, because they were all narrative choices, right? They're kind of walking simulators. That's why I didn't go there. Fair though. We could talk about the Telltale games till the cows come home, right? A few people brought up, again, the choices in mechanics and weapons, and I really do feel like those choices are downplayed. in terms of choices in games. I happen to, when people started talking about a lack of agency and a lack of choice and, you know, Uncharted being linear, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Gears of War is linear. Like, I can choose the weapons, I can choose my tactics. That's the whole point. Like, those games, to me, it's like I'm playing a movie, but I'm the combat director, right? Like, I'm choreographing the fights. And then there is strategy, there's tactics, yes, but I find those choices very meaningful in my play experience. I find those as meaningful as, oh, which romance option do you pick? I'm increasingly getting bored of romance options in games because they're not romantic. They're, you have plumbing, I have plumbing. Let's match plumbing that validates my existence in the real world. I don't fucking want that in a game. I don't get that. I'm not saying it's bad if other people do. I just don't need that sort of validation from games. Another person said, I thought this was great. Fuck 3 additional lines of dialogue as rewards for choices. I'm so sick of those breadcrumbs. I laughed at that because as a narrative designer and a writer, it's a pain in the ass for us too. I think that's part of what I admit biases my choices in games biases my opinions about choices in games is when you have to write all these branching choices and you have to remember, oh, this major choice happened. Let's make sure there's a reference to this in this other conversation. It drives you mental and you spend so much time chasing continuity that it's like, please, if we're going to put a branch in, please make it fucking meaningful. Spare the writing staff stress. Because let's face it, we're the first ones that are going to get fired when the budget starts needing to be stretched. Just true fact about working in the video game industry. Somebody else brought up Papers, Please, and I agree I sort of blocked that game from my brain because it was so painful to play. And that was the point. Those choices were really meaningful. The game accomplishes what it sets out to do. That game just hurts so bad to play. So, yeah, fair enough. People pointed out the choices I hate are like the ones in Cyberpunk 2077 where a lot of your choices with the side quests are do content or don't do content. I wanted to play a ruthless edge runner who just wants to get paid, but the whole game forces you to be everyone's emotional support animal. And I didn't think about it that way, but the minute I read that comment, I was like, fair enough. One more comment. I think the biggest problem games have been having lately regarding choice is the fact that developers, especially AAA developers, seem to have this idea that any sort of complexity or choice in a game's mechanics makes it too complex with some people, and so they feel so very watered down. That's very possible. I do think that the industry doesn't have enough respect for its player base sometimes. All right, everybody, that's the end of this Feedback Friday. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend. Thanks for your feedback.